Hello, and welcome behind the DM screen to talk a little bit about what we're going to play with lasers and feelings for Read Play Game. So, this is Emma. I'm DMing this adventure, and I did, in fact, roll on the table provided on the Read Play Game sheet. I got that space pirates are building or creating a quantum tunnel in order to reverse time. Now, that being said, I think there's two ways that could go. It could be, oh no, we have to prevent them from building the tunnel. But given that it's space pirates, and given that Star Trek does some really, really interesting stuff with occasional time travel, I decided to use that as the prompt for the story, but instead have it be successful, and came up with why they're back in time and kind of what they're doing. So what we're gonna see is I'm gonna throw them right in there. They're already back in, I think it's gonna be, they see on their sensors or something that something has gone into a wormhole, and they'll either follow it or try to figure something out about it. Maybe they'll lock onto the ship, I don't know, but the starting incident is going into that quantum tunnel, and they will find themselves outside Earth, but not the Earth that they might know. It is in fact 1808, when Zhang Yisao is getting ready to win a huge battle against the Chinese Navy. And what these space pirates are trying to do is, these space pirates are the League of Pirates that follows the, legacy of a fictional pirate that I made up called Tivra the Terrible, who is from space, and they're trying to go back and stop Zhang Yisao's career from evolving to such a legacy, so that their rivals, who follow her code, will essentially cease to exist. So I'm interested to see how our players interact with this. I'm assuming that there's going to be some sneaking, since it's the past. I thought it was hilarious while we were building characters and everybody's an android or a alien or incredibly, extravagant and looks, so the fitting in is going to be a little interesting. But yes, I think it's going to be there on the ship trying to assassinate her, and our characters are going to be trying to prevent changes to the future from happening. So yeah, should be really fun. I'm pretty pumped about it. It's not what they're expecting, I don't think, but it is a staple in kind of the Star Trek universe, which is what we're going for. So I'm really excited to see how they'll react.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Read Play Game. This is our game portion for Lasers and Feelings, where we're just going to chat a little bit about what we thought of the game we just played. We just listened to Emma's behind the screen sort of recap of her planning process. So yeah, what are all of our thoughts on that immediately after hearing it?
You definitely got one thing right. Which is that I don't think any of us expected what this session would be. Pirates, not at all. And the fact that we were on Earth with pirates, even crazier.
Yeah.
I thought it was really well. I guess it depends probably on the amount of Star Trek knowledge going in, because when I heard about the wormhole thing, I was
it was time.
Immediately I was like, huh. This is going to be one of those. One of the Star Trek ones where they're like, we just want to film on a set, a normal set instead of a sci-fi set right now. And this is going to be very interesting. And I thought it was really cool that it was a pirate setting too. Have they done that before in Star Trek?
Not in the original series, but I mean, there's so much Star Trek.
That's true.
Not that I'm aware of in the original series.
That was a really cool direction to take, especially now knowing what you rolled. I think that's a fun place to take it.
Yeah. I was worried that so the Spirited game is very much, play to find out what happens, which I think is what most of the one-page RPGs are. So I felt a little iffy about doing a starting incident versus it as the whole prompt. I didn't know. This also makes me want to play it again to try and have a more classic like space experience, because I feel like this was an abnormal space experience. But yeah, I think that I used the roles as the like I said in my thing as the starting off point, and then came up with my own kind of stepping stones for where it could go, or what challenges y'all would be facing.
And I tell you what, Miss Fire's costumes, I think, really came in handy, because the mermaid siren, I think, is what helps sell the we mean no harm and now we're leaving, which I know you kind of pushed back on because it wasn't, really addressing the prompt of blend in. So it was cool that ended up, and I thought, being a really great, escape hatch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you didn't want me to go mermaid route, but
that wasn't what it was to me. And this is something really interesting with successes and failures.
Yeah.
Is you were rolling to find appropriate quote unquote costumes. So in my mind, it was like, well, this is gonna, it's not appropriate. Like it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb, but you used that. So it's just like a different. And that was what you were going for?
That was my initial. I thought Siren when you pulled it out. I was like, "Oh, that'll be fun."
I
did not think about that. I just thought it'd be so fucking cute and slay if I had a mermaid outfit. But what's really fun about what you just described is that Emma was thinking with lasers, and we were all thinking with feelings.
Feelings, yeah,
it's true.
Well, I think it's also I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure you knew. So then it's like you got a success here. So I need to be honest about if this is what you're trying to do, that's not going to be that wouldn't be successful, but you used it a different way. Yeah. If you had gone a more diplomatic route, if everyone had walked up and started talking, I was just going to play it as wow, why are y'all the best dressed pirates that have ever been here? So it would have drawn attention, but it wouldn't have been we're shooting at you.
Yeah. It's funny because we didn't talk to any of the other space people really at all.
No.
Yeah. I was anticipating there was going to be, this thing where they're here is our dastardly plan, but then that didn't happen, at all.
Yeah.
But I kind of liked, I don't know, and I want to say I do love, I remember, Anish, you sent me this years ago. To look at for something where I was for some concept I was trying to look at, and you said, Emma, were you saying this is one of the first big one pagers in this style?
From what I know, I was trying to find the history of one page RPGs, and this was the oldest I could find, but it's probable that there are more, but this is this one really
first big
made things shoot off.
People are you can do that?
Yeah, I think the hackable thing. Yeah.
I think it's definitely cool, talking about hackable and translating it into other things, and how so many other single page would probably come through this. I think the flexibility and the simplicity of it, you could understand fundamentally how it works. Even if we hadn't really explained any of the rules, just being you have this one skill, the 0 to 2 to 5, roll above or below, and that's all you really have to worry about. And then I think that's super nice and flexible and easy for newcomers to get into.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that come into role-playing games playing D&D as their first ever game, and I'm this is the kind of game that I think you really got to start with.
Yeah.
Do most people use this as a one-off module, or do people use this as a long-form multi-session?
I think it's mostly one shot.
Surprisingly, there are lots of people who use it for long-term things.
Wow.
In terms of that, there's one other podcast that I think uses the system. Let me actually look up the name of it because it's a very Star Trekky name. I think it's those stars of space.
Ooh. I think it works. Like it's very Monster of the Week esque of like, creature
It's like
of
a
the
different
week, phenomenon
space.
of the week.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It if you treat it like a Star Trek type RPG, every time you can switch out characters, like you can have a huge ship filled with all these different types of people that go on different types of adventures,
Yeah.
and maybe you revisit characters. But the system is so cool in its simplicity that you could do either or.
Yeah. It feels a lot less like you were talking about D&D. Like D&D, there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of systems, and it's like great for the nitty-gritty. But this, it feels a lot more like theater of the mind, where there is, those rules of, oh, you roll and you succeed, or you roll and like complications or fail. Like there is that like aspect to it, but everything else is kind of like based on the the players to make up themselves, which I think is fun.
And
Like that
I
freedom.
think doing multiple sessions of this, I think would have allowed us to go more into the goals of the characters. I think particularly with what I rolled in the setup, it was like not super goal-y,
Yeah, I think with anything like this, like you can definitely do it as one session or spread it out however much you want, which is really nice. It like I think one thing that makes it more suited for a one shot in terms of like traditional role playing mechanics is that there's not really like progression that
Yeah.
works. I know a lot of like a lot of what motivates longer campaigns with other systems is that like you can either level up or you can gain new abilities and stuff like that, which obviously you can't really do here. However, it's still fun. Like you don't need to have a leveling up mechanic in order to make a system work for a long time because
Especially with the goals.
yeah, with goals and just like storytelling in general, like things are going to naturally develop and like there's a lot of choices that you're just going to end up making because they're fun in the narrative.
Yeah, that's one thing I would revisit if I were to play another session again, since it is a type of system that doesn't have a lot of progression. The way as a player you can carve out an identity for yourself is really leaning into those character traits that you set up at the very beginning. Um, if I were to go back and create this same character, I might do a different like role, perhaps like maybe explorer, um, and really lean into the character goal at some point because there is the mission that generally pushes the group together. But one thing that I always thought back to when I was trying to think of what I could do in a certain situation, I remember thinking I really wanted to interact with the pirate captain because she was so cool. But I think I wanted to prioritize leaving in one piece and not changing too many things to preserve the future where I could find new worlds, like we established at the beginning. But if my character goal was to meet new aliens or solve weird space mysteries, I feel like I would have pushed more towards interacting with the captain.
I think it's interesting to compare like lasers and feelings, which is like really great for like one shot, like quick thing, like getting people into it, to something like Scum and Villainy, which I think is Scum and Villainy is similar with the 6 die kind of system, but a lot more expanded in terms of the like you have upgrade systems, you have like damage things, you have all of these trackable things that you can use over the course of stuff. And then, you can go even more nitty gritty with something like Cyberpunk. So it's interesting, like the scaling of things for like.
I mean,
bigger
it's interesting.
things.
It's also interesting that you draw that comparison because Scum and Villainy is forged in the dark based on Blades in the Dark, which is of
Yeah.
course also designed by John Harper. So like the system, using the multiple D6 for that, like you basically, it's a very like, it's more complicated because it is designed to be sort of a longer form thing, especially with the progression, but like it has the roots that you can really, really see, and that these are such similar games at their core.
Right.
I was just remembering that moment where we're in the captain's chambers and Banjo went to speak, and we all kind of jumped in and we're like, don't do that. But just, I don't, that I guess is more of a question of like the group culture, and like once, once you said it, can you take it back? Would you have had to think about that before like declaring an action? I don't know. So that was just a moment where I was like, oh, I wonder if like rules lawyer is gonna swing the hammer a little bit and be like, now you gotta deal with it.
I feel like that's a DM style thing
True.
too.
It really
It is. It's definitely. It depends on like in that case. I feel like maybe Michael did want it to be like a talking monkey situation, but I feel like there was a moment of like we were all like, this is really gonna take this in a direction that is very different from where we're currently going. So like it almost is like it wasn't an explicit safety mechanic, but it almost felt like let's
Are you
pause.
sure?
Let's this will have story altering consequences. Yeah.
I never want people to feel like players to feel like I have swindled them into doing something, So even if something's like a surprise, like I don't know, in a home game that we play, it's a pirate game actually. There was a whole arc with doppelgangers, and the doppelganger action of like replacing the person happened way before they noticed it. And I the whole time was dropping like very little things. I think they rolled insight once on it. So it's like it was a big surprise, but when they found out, it was like, oh, this didn't come out of nowhere. Like I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's a good point. And I would have been mad if we if we kept it and then had to deal with that. If we kept the fact that you spoke, and like now we got to deal with that. It just stuck out to me. Yeah.
It's just good to have communication between players, because that was us all being like, Michael, this is not where we want this to go right now. But like, if you had really wanted to take it in that direction, like I would have been okay with you doing it. But I just wanted you to be aware that like we all were sort of
It's I pick it up with your hands. Yes, like letting like, with your bare hands, you pick it up. Like, oh, okay, cool. Like, just clarifying.
And I feel like there was a similar moment too, where Emma was. I mean, when I was picking the outfits, where Emma was like, "Are you really sure you want to do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
like,
and then
like it's in character. So if it was in character, I mean, if it could have happened,
It would have, scanned. I feel for Banjo, he's very like, like. Whatever, I heard the word fire, let me blah blah blah. Like it definitely would have been character motivated.
I'm always a fan of chaos, so usually if I were a DM in that situation, I'd love like letting the ball roll and just keep rolling it to wherever the heck it goes. But I always, what I appreciate about you, Emma, is that you do a really good job about laying out the situation, informing us about potential consequences, and then giving us the agency afterwards.
Like, it's gentle parenting. and natural consequences.
Is that why it feels so unfamiliar? Is that why
Tori,
I'm like, what is this?
We do post this publicly, Tori.
I'm like, why did you do that? Why didn't you just like immediately like jump to blaming and shaming? Like, Anyway.
I mean, I think.
Go ahead, Michael.
Read play
No,
therapy.
all I was gonna say, like, I wasn't thinking of like the talking concept or anything. So
yeah.
So it wasn't. Yeah, it was. I'm glad.
But
you
it
pointed
would have made
out.
sense if Banjo hadn't considered that either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and there's a world where that did happen, and we all, kind of like we sighed and we were like, oh, it's. But then the narrative is still interesting, and some fun stuff still happens, and we still
another equivalent of it that happened that y'all kind of redirected, because I think that there's when I direct plays, I say that you being an actor in a play, you are the expert on your character, but I'm the expert on the reality of the world. So like, come talk to me about like things that your character might not be thinking about that should affect you. Or so for me, like when y'all were about to mess with the technology, I was just like, hey, what, like your two main things you were thinking about, or your two initial things were don't change anything and, you know, stop the assassination from happening. You as players might not be holding that in your head, but the characters would probably be aware of it. So just like, again,
Yeah,
do what you
no.
want, but like, and I think that was when we had the T2 distraction moment, you know, of like, yeah, we'd probably do something about that.
The only other moment that pops up is when the captain was asking us how we got on the ship. I was like, I did not know how to come up with a convincing lie, because you're talking about the ship exploded, but like they would have heard that or seen that. Like, did they not have lookouts for rowboats coming up to them? So that was a moment where I was like, wow, you kind of got me pinned. I do not know how to get our way out of this.
That's why we have a talking monkey, or non-talking monkey,
A miming monkey.
a miming monkey.
Yeah.
That's Mr. Mime.
Would I be able to quickly pivot to the
Yeah.
central mechanic of this game?
Please.
Lasers and feelings as a mechanic is something I adore, and playing through this has really cemented that, because I initially conceived of an envoy that was incredibly charismatic and using that charisma to succeed. But it was really interesting flipping that on its head to see what sort of result I could get. And I realized that, you know, an international pop star is a very cold and calculating person at the end of the day, right? And it was really fun to.
It's a business. It's a business.
It's a business. It's show
All the
business.
Swifties coming for us.
Ooh, I got chills. Take it back.
Are you sure you want to do that?
This will have consequences.
Are you sure about that?
But I loved playing into that, because my natural instinct in a lot of role-playing games is to go the passionate, complete, impromptu response. But fighting against that, because it is more likely to succeed, made it really interesting to play a character, because that's what you're always thinking about. If I cannot succeed on this, can I get additional help from my team who could
Yeah.
push it forward? And it naturally creates more, you know, incentive for the team to help you out, and it incentivizes a certain type of play style. Either you approach a situation with a rationality, or you go balls to the walls and say, I
Yeah.
love you.
I love playing contradictory characters too. Like seeing this very charismatic but also very cold character, and getting to interact with that as, you know, the game master, the GM. Like the moment where you had this whole plan laid out and then you rolled a partial success, and I decided like you get the result you're looking for but not the right way.
Yeah.
Like it's probably a little demoralizing for you, but that's what people are going to look at. Like that opened up some interesting routes for me to go to.
Yeah, I was also hoping to sort of push into that too, where like I was intending to go with a lot more lasers rolls than I actually ended up doing. Like I was gonna like fire my gun and be like terrible at it or something, but I'm kind of glad I didn't, and I'm glad that we could interpret certain like attack or moments as feelings, because that's fair. But I do think I also wanted to say, kind of like looping that in with what another topic that I had in mind was expanding on a little bit of what we talked about in the last game episode for the ground itself, like system and what it means for its setting, like how it's tied to its setting. And I think that lasers and feelings is such a perfect tie-in to something that is so Star Trek inspired. Mostly in lasers and feelings being like a central driving force. If I feel like a lot of stuff in Star Trek, like you know, Vulcans being all about like logic and not feelings, right? Please correct me if I'm wrong, but okay. There's a lot of ways to make a piece of media or be inspired by a piece of media into a game system, and I think that this is a very good way to do that.
Yeah.
By having like a spectrum for these characters.
One of my favorite Star Trek episodes that I can't remember the name of. It's kind of is that dichotomy of like the whole time
Is it
they're
the one
lasers.
where Spock is horny?
No.
Oh, okay.
The whole time they're lasers and they're trying to figure it out, and they're going against this like monster, you know, just the entire time. And then at the end it's like, oh no, it's protecting its babies. We need to, like, we came in here and we're messing with it, and it was protecting itself and going from a much more compassionate thing. And that is, I think you're right, the driving force behind
Yeah, and not only just
media.
being one or the other, but like
Having to do both.
yeah. And some people aren't as good at it.
Oh,
And some
my
people are
actual
better.
favorite episode, The Arena.
Is it the one where Spock is horny?
No,
Isn't that the one?
that's not my favorite episode.
Isn't that the one where Spock is horny?
No, that's
What episode is
Con
this?
Four.
Please answer. Please answer. What episode is this?
Look up.
Do y'all know about this?
Look up Spock
There's-
horny.
There's an episode where the
Go to
plot of the episode is Vulcans spawn like salmon. They have to return home and mate every now and then, and Spock is
horny.
in heat.
Yes.
And if he doesn't go home to Vulcan, he will literally die.
No.
That is the
way.
plot. That is the plot.
So it's the one where
great.
Spock's horny.
And it's the one where Spock's horny. And that is another beautiful lasers versus feelings. He's lasers all the time. That episode, he is battling. He is going through it because he's feelings and he doesn't want to be
You got to use some lasers to deal with these feelings. If you don't deal with the horny feelings, you will die.
And truly beautiful episode.
Is
that
that
the
the
arena?
arena?
No.
Okay, well, tell us about the arena.
The arena episode is Kirk is transported and he has to, it's like a gladiator style, he has to fight. And Kirk, if you've ever seen any clips of Kirk fighting, the thing is that he always tears his shirt. Like, they're always tearing this guy's shirt. He's always got chest out, you know, boob window.
He's a manly man.
Yeah, but for Arena, he is outfought. He's fighting something much bigger than him, and he has to go to lasers. He has to figure out how to fight something that he cannot just upright battle against. Yeah.
So what
That's
happens in the one where
interesting.
Spock is horny? Don't they have to fight too?
Okay, the one that Spock's horny, he goes, his wife doesn't want to fuck him. She has a lover that she wants to be with instead. So she presents a challenge and makes Kirk fight him. She says, like, I want to be with Captain Kirk. And Captain Kirk's like, well, how bad can this be? Let's fight. And then he finds out it's a fight to the death. So then they fight. It's such a good episode. It is really fun. So then they fight. Dr. McCoy gives him a drug that slows down his heart rate enough that it seems like he dies. Spock comes out of heat at the grief of killing his best friend. No
Oh my
longer
God.
wants his wife. Is like, you're trash. You made me kill my best friend. Goes back up to the Starship Enterprise, walks onto the bridge, or not the bridge, but, you know, walks into, I think, the med bay and is like, it's time to take me to jail. I have killed my captain and my friend. And then Kirk pops up and says, shouldn't you ask me first as the captain? And Spock, which this is incredibly rare, breaks out into a huge grin and gives him a hug.
Aw.
And then is like, oh, I'm pleased to see that you're alive. And then, like, they go back to
And
normal.
the shippers went insane.
The shippers went insane. Spurk.
And everybody claps.
That's what the ladies were writing letters about back then.
Burke. What
The
about
original
um,
fanfic.
Spock, Kirk,
And Bones.
Cock?
That was the alternative. But they went with Spurt.
It's like Katniss and PETA.
Yeah.
What's that
Anyway.
Penis.
This.
Penis. Penis.
You kids.
We do post this. Anyway.
We'll cut all this out. Spoilers for that episode of Star Trek.
In talking about, and I mean, Elle, you've edited the first round, so I don't know what this looks like, but something I did find myself a little confused and having to check back was, if you're using lasers, you want to roll under the number you chose. If you're using feelings, you want to roll over your number. So it may or may not be worth it to go back each time somebody, like in those first few rolls, to specify that, because I feel like, I mean, maybe we did, but I feel like each time I was like, did I get it or
And-
no?
truly, I was looking at the sheet every time. I think
Got it.
if you play a lot, you'll probably get used to it, but it's also easy enough that you roll and then there's that moment of, okay, what's this mean? Yay! You know?
I think also in a room where like if you're I don't know, I feel like there's a useful diagram or mnemonic you could make to like remember that more easily, like especially if you're in
Lasers
person.
low.
Is
like,
lasers
feelings
low?
fucking
Lasers
high.
low.
lasers low.
Lasers
feelings
is the down arrow.
feelings
the up
flying.
arrow.
Yeah.
Feelings, yeah.
I think of it like heat, like a temperature,
Just like
like
spot.
feelings versus
Fuck,
cold.
it's horny.
Hot versus
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah.
You're gonna confuse
That's
Hot
good,
and
that's
you're
good.
Cold, you're
Cold,
yes
yeah.
and you're no. You're in and you're
Okay,
out.
Taylor
You're
Swift.
up and
That's
you're
not
down.
Taylor
I know.
Swift.
That's not.
Actually,
Okay,
let's
everybody.
talk about that. Fuck Star Wars and Star Trek with Katy Perry versus T Swift. Let's hear it.
That's the
Why
real
would we
lasers
make
and
two-
What's
feelings.
everyone's
Queen's
favorite
fight.
Taylor Swift song?
We can't pander like
I-
this. to
I
people.
also-
If we say
I
Taylor
really
Swift,
like
then
the
Swift,
Taylor Swift
we'll get a
concert
billion
movie.
views.
I think everyone should have gone and seen the Taylor Swift concert movie.
I need to make this disclaimer. I don't know a lot about Taylor
I
Swift.
thought you were about
I
to
could
say
tell.
like Taylor Swift, and I was like, you can't say that, Anish. You can't say that.
No,
on
Taylor
this.
Swift is lovely. But I didn't know what I was signing up for. I figured I'd just do like a different version of Taylor. Nope, we really committed to this is Taylor Swift and this is her entire life.
I thought you
which was
characterized her
interesting.
pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you
I thought
were
you did well.
different. You were your own being. And that's
And
really
I
important.
think I'd love to. It genuinely was a fun character, and it'd be interesting to flesh it out with further sessions. You know, that's the type of game Lasers and Feelings is.
I was gonna say real quick, DM tools for this one. I thought that the table was pretty great. I think, well, like we talked about before, super hackable. I am curious if they are very vague in a way that's really fun, or they're so specific that they're vague. You know, it's like this name of a person, and then that person can be whatever you want it to be. I think there's one that's like Hex
Zorgon the Conqueror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, who is he? Nobody knows, you know? So I think that's really fun. I wonder, I don't know. I don't know if it's easier or trickier to have to fill those holes for like a new player or a new GM, you know? I think there's something to be said for having a lot of content to kind of lean against.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely is like the interesting thing talking about, like, I mean, we were talking about Blades in the Dark, like, you know, other John Harper stuff. It's like, this is super flexible. There's like not really much lore with it, you know, in terms of like you roll this stuff, but with Blades in the Dark, and there's like there's so much like specific stuff like that, like informs like the world. So it's like interesting.
That's the thing that I notice a lot with like a lot of from a lot of John Harper's games are setting specific. It seems like, especially this one and Blades in the Dark, and the other one I mentioned is Lady Blackbird, I believe it's called. Which I don't know if anyone else is familiar with this one, but that one is fully like all the characters are pre-created and the scenario is created. Like you don't make your character, you play as.
Like it's more like playing Clue as an RPG.
Sure, yeah. You like they have these 5 characters. Like
positive.
you can play this game with specifically up to 5 people, and you
Tone
pick
indicator.
the characters, and it's always one scenario. But there's a couple games that he has in this, so it's almost like playing a module because it is so specific in the characters you play. But it seems like a lot of fun as well. So that one is very setting tied, and then so is Blades in the Dark because they've got so many factions that you need to keep track of. And then this one, I believe like the more you change it from its original setting is hacking it, essentially. Like same with Blades in the Dark. Like if you play Blades in the Dark and you want to use that system, you fully can. But if you change the factions to your own factions, you're basically playing your own hack of Blades in the Dark instead of playing Blades in the Dark in itself. So I wonder like where's the line? Like at which point have we hacked it? Because we are creating a fully original narrative when you're playing a game, but like if you're using different things, it's a very interesting line. But I think that's why he's so excited about hacking, probably because you are making it your own in a lot of ways. Any other thoughts before we move to the roll?
I really enjoyed your character, Michael, and half of that was getting the visual of you like on your different appendages and whatnot.
Oh, that's fun.
Those feet and arms.
And I think it was maybe our first, I know in the ground itself we had like different like humanoid creatures, but we weren't really like playing them. So to see you do this like really out there kind of character I haven't seen you do before. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Very
No,
funny.
I was inspired by there's a character in Baldur's Gate 3 in the third act who's this little kobold who's like
I love kobolds.
he's so fucking cute. He's just basically like, I has lots of stuffs to sell. And he's just like, and so I was like, I don't know, I think that'd be fun to do.
We should
I was
definitely get.
I was picturing Sebulba.
We should definitely
yeah,
get
so,
a picture of
Sebulba,
that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, Sebulba, definitely. But
Yeah.
in terms of personality,
Cool, excellent. All right, Tori, let's roll that die. See what we're playing next.
It's gonna be Single Unique Power by Tyler Crumrine.
Awesome.
Oh, you're so excited about this.
So we will see you guys next time on another side of a brand new table for Single Unique Power. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.